Big welcome everybody and welcome to our demonstration today. So today's demonstration, again, we're going to keep it very simple and perfect for the beginner, the amateur, or somebody who just likes making flowers for their own enjoyment or even as a hobby. Obviously here at the school, the majority of our classes are all professional certificate courses, you know, the way programs, they're over a number of weeks, and we go a lot into the wholesalers, the costing of the arrangements, how to work out what material that you need, what the selling prices would be, conditioning and treatment, and setting up accounts with wholesalers, along with a lot more. Like obviously we do theory classes and practical classes with our students. But today is all about a little bit of fun and a little bit of enjoyment. A lot of you contact me and you say that you get flowers as a present, maybe from your own family, or you treat yourself to a bunch of flowers when you go to the supermarket, and you're always asking, what can you do with it? Hat boxes are absolutely ideal, and even if it's just as a present for yourself, you know, that way, or even to gift it to somebody, whether it's a happy birthday, happy anniversary, I love you, thinking of you, get well soon, you name it, hat box is probably going to cover it. So these hat boxes, we get these in from our suppliers. Obviously we cover wholesalers as part of our tutorials with the students. They do come flat packed, but the directions are on the back of the box, you know, that way, how to assemble them up. So they're ideal for anybody that does work in a flower shop or is going to do this commercially, because they don't take up any space. Container wise, I'm going to use what we call a bulb bowl. These are a very popular container. They do come larger, and we use the larger ones for like the large pedestal arrangements, topiary tree arrangements with our students on our module 4. That's where we cover hotel and event decoration. So for today's display, you will need a block of foam. To be honest, you only need a half a block of foam. And if you buy a full block, cut it in half, but only soak the parts that you're going to use. It always stores better if you keep it dry until the next time that you use it. For anybody that's still only new, you know, that way you're at the beginner stage, I would recommend go over to our website, floristireland.com. Click on the blog button, and we have lots of free tutorials there, giving you little tips on maybe treating floral foam and how to wet it, you know what I mean, lots of things that you mightn't realise, or even on what foliages you can grow in your garden for flower arranging, and even the treatment and conditioning of the particular flowers I'm going to use today. Also, we have a YouTube channel, and it's just under Case Flower School if you find it, and again there's lots of free tutorials there. Now again, it's all just about giving you little tips and little hints, you know, the way, and they're suitable for the beginner. You can then decide if you want to go to the next stage and you want to do it professionally and maybe make a few bob at it. But anyway, today's all about a little bit of fun. So here in my bulb bowl, I have the half block of floral foam, and it just sits and wedges securely down into the centre of the bulb bowl. And then it'll sit securely, just see the way, down into the centre of your hat box. Now, some people ask me, could you use anchor tape going across the top? Absolutely, if you have anchor tape. I know a lot of people watching here today are just beginners and they may not have it, you know, that way. But like the design that we're doing, there's very little chance of the arrangement falling out, you know what I mean? So you'll get away without using anchor tape. And by the way, we would have a lot of these sundries, this is what we call these sundries, for sale on our website, floristireland.com. Click on the floral sundries button, and again, if you want to buy the hat boxes, the floral foam, the bulb bowls, even the anchor tape, they're all for sale on our website. Now, greenery wise, I'm going to use pittosporum today, but listen, you could use eucalyptus, leather leaf, whatever foliage you happen to have, like even ivy out of the garden would be perfect. It depends on the time of the year, depends on what you're growing in your garden, or what your neighbour is growing, or what your friends are growing. But remember, you can always go to a local flower shop and you'll be able to purchase, you know, a couple of branches of it. So when you get your foliage, cut it into just under 20 centimetres in length, as in 20 centimetres, 20 centimetres, 20 centimetres, and just about. We've a short little one there, we'll cut it off, you know, that way. But the rest of it there is rubbish. You can see the way I've cut all the nice pieces off, so that goes into your bin. Now flower wise, I'm going to use a selection of flowers, because if you got a gift of flowers, chances are there's all different types in it. So I have a couple of roses, and if you want to, pause this video and get your notebook and make a few little notes, because when you're starting off, it's important to have recipes kind of like wrote out. So then if you want to make something in the future, you'll know what your recipe is or what flowers that you require. So I have approximately 6 roses there. These are just short stem roses. The shorter the roses, the cheaper they are. So again, you can purchase them in your supermarket. And what I'm doing here is just removing the guard petal. These are your outside petals, just from around the outside of the rose. Another flower that I have here is Germany, as in mini gerberas, okay? And I have 6 of these as well. Now you'll get away with less of them if you want to. Make sure it's not gerberas, because they're very big. Now you could get away with them, you know what I mean? But they're probably a little bit too big for the display that I'm doing today. I have 3 stems or so of lisianthus. Now again, if you've ever done a course with me, you'll know I'm a big lover of lisianthus. What you see is what you get. They're a lovely flower. And you know, at a quick glance, they can either look like a sweet pea or they can look like a rose. And when you're purchasing lisianthus, you can get double lisianthus as well. As a little bit of filler and just another bit of texture, I'm going to use wax flower. Now obviously this is not available the whole year round, and I don't know what month you're watching this tutorial. So again, you can substitute it for maybe solidaster, solidago, limonium, status, gyp, hypericum berry, or even a couple of dried flowers or a little bit of silk flowers, okay? So we start off with greening up the display first. So I'll just move my items out of the way. So I have my greenery cut up. To save time, I had a lot of it cut up. Now some of you may ask me, how many pieces am I going to use? What I wanted to do with that notebook and pen there is start counting the pieces as I put them in and make a note of it. Some of the pieces I'm going to put in are a little bit fuller. So you see that one has a second branch. And then some of them are like what I call the skinny millings, you know, that sort of way, where there's just one little piece on its own. And a very odd one, we'll come across one there, and they're a little bit fluffier. Nice and fluffy, there we go, and that could be a great filler pieces. The more of them you have, the less pieces you're going to need, and the quicker you'll green up this arrangement. But obviously it depends on what you're able to get. And this is all about maybe using up stuff that you're able to get in your own garden. Now when you're inserting the foliage, okay, I want the foliage inserted on an angle and in a way that it's inserted into the floral foam, but it's resting out over the edge of the hat box, okay? Now, I'm just going to take this out of the hat box so you can see what I'm doing. But like when you're making it, don't take it out of the hat box, leave it in the hat box. So the idea is that you're resting near the edge of the floral foam, near the edge of the plastic bowl, and inserting it in on an angle, so that when you sit it down into the hat box, can you see the way it sits over the edge? So that's why we're doing that. And when we're adding in, say, the next piece, okay, I'm just looking for one of them bushier pieces, that each piece is barely tipping the last one, okay? So a little bit of space and barely tipping. Turn it around, take off the leaf that's at the bottom, little bit of space and barely tipping. And again, take off the leaf that's at the bottom, little bit of space and barely tipping. And that's what you're doing. You're going all the way around the outside of the bulb bowl. Now don't worry that some of the foliage is 18, 19, 20 and 21 centimetres. Because this box is hexagon, so you get away with murder. And again, it's great when you're a beginner. So again, I'm just going to rest that inside the box. Now again, somebody might ask me, will I secure it? It'll be absolutely fine. When you get all the greenery all the way around it, it secures it itself. So you can see there the way it's resting over the edge. So you continue on, remove the leaf at the bottom, stick it in. Excuse the buzzer there. The tip is, don't use too much foliage. Less is best. Don't put them squashed together real tight, okay? Like if it ends up that there's a little bit too much space, we can always go back afterwards and add more in. Where if you overdo it and you put the foliages too close together, well then it ends up that the holes in the floral foam are also too close together. And what happens with floral foam, this one's a little bit long, so I'm just going to take a bit off it. What happens with floral foam is when there's 2 holes right beside each other, they join up and they make a bigger hole. And 3 holes beside each other, they join up and they make an even bigger hole. And the bigger the hole, the more chance that items will actually fall out. And when something falls out, what do? Only shove it back in again, and guess what? You've made another bloody hole in the floral foam. So again, less is best is really important. You can always go back and add in more. The other thing to remind yourself, and I'm always saying this to the students at the course, we're not making an arrangement of foliage. We're not a garden centre. I'm not selling a Pittosporum tree. I am a florist, or you are a florist, and you are going to be selling flowers. And that's what the customer appreciates, is flowers. They don't want to see lots and lots of greenery. And sometimes flower shops could look at, say, somebody working at home, and they'd say, oh, you'd know that was a kitchen sink florist, okay? And I, like, excuse the remark, but that's what they call them. And you know they're a kitchen sink florist because they've overdone the foliage. It's like they went out to the garden, they cut down every bush they could see. Kind of, it was a competition. Let's get as much of it into the floral foam as possible, and then a couple of flowers scattered here and there. So a little tip for you, if you're trying to be professional, you know, that way, don't do that. Don't overdo the foliage. Next, what I'm going to do is I'm going to stand a small piece of foliage up in the centre, okay? And that'll give you the centre of the arrangement, and immediately you can see it actually starts to kind of camouflage or hide the floral foam, which is what you're planning to do. And then with the remaining pieces of foliage, okay, you're going to add these in on a slant. Now, when I say the remaining pieces, I'm going to use only what I need, okay? Not necessarily what's in front of me, you know, that way. So if I have extras left over, that doesn't mean I'm going to put them in for the sake of it, okay? Pretend you're on Weight Watchers. If there's something left on the plate, throw it in the bin. You don't have to eat it, okay? So the same trick, okay? Working away around that centre piece of foliage. And can you see the way everything is going in on a slant? So I'm working around the middle part of the foam, not the exact centre, not the outside, kind of that middle area. And by placing them in on a slant, you get that lovely shape to your design. And again, you'll nearly know when you have enough. If you don't know, have you got enough, stop. Go onto the flowers and then go back afterwards. If you can still see floral foam after the flowers are in, you'll then need more foliage, okay? So if you're not sure, stop. Don't keep going, whatever you do, don't keep going. Stop, and we can always go back and add more in. Now, I'm happy enough with what I have there. So I have a couple of pieces left over, and hopefully you've counted them pieces, because I didn't count them as I went along. And now I'm just going to clean off the table, and obviously you don't throw yours on the floor like I did. You go and throw them into the bin. Now, flower-wise, I have a couple of roses, I've germini, I've lisianthus, and I have the wax flower. The wax flower goes in last. That's your fillers. So your fillers always go in last. So whether it's gyp or hypericum berry or limonium, status, solidaster, solidago, whatever it is you're going to use, leave that till the last. Now, with flower arranging, important flowers to the middle, write that down. Expensive flowers to the middle. Nicest flowers to the middle, do you know that way? And sometimes they might even say bigger flowers to the middle. And the other sentence to write down is least important flowers to the outside. Cheaper flowers to the outside. Do you know that way? The cheap shit, as I'd say, to the outside. But we shouldn't really have said that. So just when the customer looks at the arrangement, that they see the nicer flowers. Now, out of the selection that I have there today, the roses is definitely the nicer flower. So if you only happen to have one rose, okay, all flowers are cut on a slant, by the way, stand it up as close to the centre. So even if I only put one rose into this arrangement, when the customer looks at it, they say, wow, look at the roses. They don't see anything else. The rest of the arrangement could be dandelions. That'd be a horrible colour, by the way, to mix with this pink rose. But just using as an example, do you know that way? Could be carnations. People see the rose. That's what's important. And another little trick, the other flowers that you use, whether it be the dandelions or the carnations, again, I'm only joking here, you know the way, if they're a similar colour to that flower, they give the illusion that there's lots of pink roses in the arrangement. It's a trick that florists use all the time. You just haven't been aware of it. Now, I have a couple of roses left over. I have 5 roses left over. And a lot of times on flowers, we use uneven numbers, okay? And you might say, well, God, you have 6 there. You know the way, that's going to be an even number. But number 1, as I'm going to call that one, like, is a focal flower. So normally what florists do is they pick 3 of something and they work around the centre flower. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to pick out 3 of the roses. I'm going to cut them approximately the same length, you know that way, the 20 centimetres, and always cut on an angle. When you cut on an angle, the flowers slide into the floral foam. When you cut straight across, they shove into the floral foam. Now, there's lots more rules, and we cover all them rules on our Module 1 class. So what I'm just going to do now is I'm going to place in these roses on an angle, coming away from our centre rose. And I'm going to try and space out these 3 roses fairly evenly, that they kind of form like a triangle, you see, going around it. Now, there's lots of rules and lots of principles in flower arranging. And do you remember earlier I mentioned about the kitchen sink flowers? This is how you know the difference, as in she just affect them flowers into that hat box and hoped for the best, or she actually has professional training. So this is where, like, we would get students ringing us up and they say, oh, I've been doing flowers as a hobby for 3 years, can I skip to module 2? Absolutely no way. You start at module 1. I am going to get rid of all them bad habits of you. I'm going to train you professionally. I want you that you get a job in a flower shop, or even if you eventually go on to set up your own business, that you know exactly what it's going to cost, how many flowers you're going to use, and what the selling prices will be. Because there's lots of people go on to open up a business and like lose so much money because they don't know the principles and the rules behind floristry, but also the business side of it. And that's something that we cover here at the school, is the business side of it, not just the practical side of it. Obviously, with all our courses, we offer full support. So even though we say our courses are online courses, they are as close to a classroom-based course as you can possibly make it. With a classroom-based course, you see the item once, you know, being demonstrated, or you make it, you're corrected, and that's basically the end of it. With our online courses, because the tutorials are pre-recorded, like this one here, you can go back now and you can watch this again. And every time you watch it, you pick up something else that you didn't pick up or catch on to the first time. So all our tutorials are pre-recorded, that the students can watch them over and over again while they're in the Bloom Room. So the Bloom Room is like their virtual interactive classroom, and this is where they can interact with their tutor every day from 9:30 till 3:30. Plus we have a WhatsApp group, but the WhatsApp is one-to-one, it's personal. So the only one talking to you in the WhatsApp group is me to you or you to me. So you're able to take photographs of your work step by step, at whatever stage you're stuck at, or maybe the complete design. You can forward it on to me in WhatsApp between 9:30 and 3:30 every day. When you're in your Bloom Room, I will give you full critique on it, tell you exactly where you're going wrong or where you went right. You can then correct it, you can send back a second photograph, or we even encourage them to do videos. And there's no limit on the interaction that you have with your tutor. If it's back and forward all day, we've lots of tutors here at the school, you will get that support. So nobody's going to feel, oh my God, like I'm left on my own here. And moving on to the Germanese. A little trick with the Germanese, and write this down. Don't cut these on an angle, cut straight across, okay? Because they're a hollow stem, and what happens is when you cut on an angle, you make it too narrow at the bottom, and it's very difficult to get it into the floral foam. So our Germanese are a biggish flower as well. Now I know I did say to you don't get gerberas because they're too big. Now remember the rules, bigger flowers to the middle. So what I'm going to do is in between our 3 roses, I'm going to place 3 of these Germanese. Now a lot of people say to me, oh God, I have problems getting the Germanese into the floral foam. Chances are it was because they cut them on a slant, because that's the rule generally with flowers. Or the other problem was when they were sticking them into the foam, they didn't hold them down low enough. So already you can see the centre of our hat box there is kind of like starting to take shape, and again our eye is drawn to the middle. But obviously don't forget about the outside of the arrangement. Now again, I'll come back to the couple of roses that's left over, or the couple of Germanese that are left over. I may not use them all, you know what I mean? So again, it's important with this demonstration that you're writing down what you're using. I was trying to show you like a mixed typical bunch that maybe you buy from a florist, or that you got as a gift from somebody, and how you can use it up. So now I'm on to the lisianthus, okay? So again, I'm going to cut up we have a little broken one there. We're going to cut up the lisianthus. Now cut up the buds and all. Do you see them little kind of like whitey buds? And you'll say to yourself, will they open? Probably they won't, you know the way. But I want you to cut them up as well. Because when you bought these flowers, or whoever bought the flowers for you, they were charged for them. The florist didn't say, oh God, there's a few little buds there. Sure, listen, we'll give you a little discount. That didn't happen at all. You were charged for every flower that you received, okay? And if you bought your flowers wholesale, because we cover wholesalers, you know that way, as part of our training here at Case Flower School, like all our students get a delivery direct from Holland to their own home. And again, we go through, they can set up an account with this Dutch supplier, and again, even when the course is over, they are able to go online, order all their flowers, and they obviously get them a lot cheaper than if you deal with a local wholesaler. But we also cover that as part of our training. So what I'm going to do with a couple of these lisianthus is I'm going to go around the outside of the basket. Can you see on a slant, you know, that way, just positioning them in that they're resting out over the edge of your hat box. I think I said basket there a while ago. Ignore that. So we're just working our way around, you know, that way. And again, leaving a little bit of space in between them, because I may go back afterwards and I may add in a couple more roses. I may add in a couple more germany. We're trying to make out what have you got in your mixed sponge. So if anybody so far in their mixed sponge only had the 4 roses, which could be 4 carnations by the way, or the 3 germanies, which could be 3 sunflowers or 3 proteas or 3 lily heads, it doesn't matter, we can substitute the flowers. And if you have any questions at all there about what flowers you could use or what flowers, or if you have a suggestion of a substitution, put it in the comments, you know, that way, and I will come back and I'll respond to you. Or if you have any questions at all. If there's any questions about training here at the school, you're probably as well to email us. If you drop us an email, info@florischoolisland.com. Again, the girls in the office will get back to you, and any information that you need about maybe funding or getting a grant, you know, that way, because a lot of people don't realise if you're on social welfare funding, your course will probably be completely free. It'll cost you absolutely nothing. Most of you don't realise that. So drop us an email, info@florischoolisland.com, and again, I can give you all that information. Now what I'm doing with a couple of buds that some of you may have thrown out, you can see the way I just went around the outside of the arrangement and I added a couple of them little buds in, and it just gives us another little bit of texture to see through the arrangement. They very rarely open. Most buds on other flowers open, but you do find with the lisianthus they're not as inclined to open. Now I still have a couple of roses, couple of germany, and again a couple of lisianthus left over, right? But again, I've odd numbers, as in I've only 2 roses here, right? So even though I said at the beginning, like uneven numbers work better, and you can see there it did. Well, obviously, sometimes you haven't got the uneven number, or you haven't got a 3rd rose. Now, by the way, I could probably go to the box or the bucket and get a 3rd rose. But just to show you, I'm just coming along here. I'm adding a rose to the outside of the arrangement on that side there. I'll just turn it around here. And I'm going to add a rose to the outside on the opposite side of the basket, just to use them up, okay? No particular. And I know somebody might say, well, what about the rule, important flowers to the middle? I still have the important flowers to the middle. Do you know the way? It's just kind of using up our flowers and giving a little bit more texture and kind of like dividing up the proportions and the balance in the arrangement. Again, I have a couple of germanies, you know, that way. So kind of set in a little bit, not necessarily right to the outside, but just maybe behind the roses that are already there, is I can just add another germany in there. Again, there's not really much space to add any more in, so I'm probably going to leave it at that. And again, I have a couple of lisianthus heads that I hadn't cut up, so I'm going to cut up them ones there. And again, just a little bit maybe in towards the centre, add a little lisianthus head there, add a little bud head there. Because remember, like, mostly I kept the lisianthus towards the outside. But by doing this now, you're distributing the flowers more even, kind of throughout the whole display. So hopefully I'm kind of making this nice and simple, you know, that way, that it's not regimental, that you kind of feel, I need 3 of this, and I need 3 of this, or I need 5 of this. Like, more or less, you can do what you want. I always say to the students, what if the customer tells you that they're 4 years married and they want 4 roses in the arrangement, and you say to them, oh God, no, you can't have 4 because Janette said it has to be 5, has to be 7, has to be 9, has to be 11. Rules are there to be broken. You know, obviously they're there to guide you as well, and you don't break every rule, do you know that way? But there's certain rules out there that you can be a little bit flexible with. Now we're working on our wax flower, and I'm going to cut the wax flower up into little sprigs. And again, I'm working on the 20 centimetres approximately. And again, with the wax flower, I have lots of little buds, you know that way, so I'm cutting them off as well. Absolutely waste nothing, do you know that way? Nothing gets thrown in the bin, only the stalk or the rubbish, you know that way? So cut them all up there into little sprigs. Now some of you may ask, like, how many stems are you going to use? This is a low grade. Now when I say low grade, it doesn't mean there's anything wrong with it, but it's a low weight, okay? So flowers are sold by the weight, and the heavier they are, the better they are, because there's more flowers on the stem, but obviously the more expensive they're going to be. So when you buy something that's a lower grade or a lower weight, it doesn't mean that there's anything wrong with the flower, but you're not going to get as much, and obviously you're going to pay a little bit less. Now the thing is, there's minimum quantities that you have to buy when you're buying wholesale. To give you an idea, with wax flower, the minimum you can buy is 25 stems. So if you're just doing a couple of arrangements, it might be more practical for you to buy a lower grade, 25 stems, half the price, half the flowers, half the amount of money that you're handing out, rather than buying 25 stems of the higher grade, which is longer, larger, heavier, do you know the way, and a lot more flowers on it, but obviously going to be double the price as well. So that's how you can weigh it up. That goes for all flowers, by the way. So even like with gyp, you know the way sometimes you go into a flower shop and you say, God, the gyp bunches are absolutely huge today. And then you say, God, but they're really, really expensive. And then another day you go in and you say, God, the gyp is real light, as we call it. You know what I mean? Like there's very little on it, like it's a little bit skimpy or a little bit miserable. But chances are it's obviously a lot cheaper as well. So sometimes you might find that that particular day you need to buy 2 stems to get 1 decent stem. But the 2 stems together normally adds up to the same price. It normally does, like wholesale anyway. That's definitely how it works. So it's half the weight, it's half the price. If it's double the weight, it's double the price, you know that way. So you can see there with the little sprigs of wax flower, I'm not following any particular pattern. My eye has just been drawn, do you know that way? And I'm just adding in little bits of tufts, kind of like here and there. And as I said, the little buds, I'm using that as well. And it just gives you a lovely kind of texture, kind of like a garden style to your arrangement. And again, hopefully it's giving you a few ideas for anybody that's maybe working with material that they just happen to have, you know that way. Whereas I said, flowers that you got as a gift, you know that way, maybe even flowers out of your own garden. If anybody copies these designs, feel free to post them over in our Flowery Fun group. I'd absolutely love to see them, do you know the way? And like obviously comment and say that you copied it from one of the designs. So that's what I've used up. I do have 2 Germany left over, but I don't need them. And there's our gorgeous little, you know, country style hat box arrangement, which would make a beautiful gift to somebody, whether it be a birthday, an anniversary, a get well soon, or whatever the occasion might be. Again, a little reminder, if you have any questions, put them in the comments and I'll get back to you. But what I'd really appreciate, okay, is if you interact with our page. So even if it's just a thumbs up, a love heart, or even a little comment, and if you really want to make our day, we'd really appreciate if you shared our videos, because obviously we depend on social media to get the word out there about our training programs here at Kay's Flower School. So again, if you could share this video, it just widens our audience. Hopefully you enjoyed it. My name is Janette and I'm from Kay's Flower School, and thanks for joining me today.